Hey, what's up guys, my name is Josh and today we're going to be discussing the Light Sith, a really cool organisation that is in the EU, and it's just another reason to love the EU. There's loads and loads of small little cool things in there, canon or not, that are just really cool. And speaking of canon, this is not canon, unfortunately. I really hate having to kind of look into whether something's canon or not. I really hate the distinction between canon and legends, and I hate how some things are just non-existent, literally they don't exist in the Star Wars universe. I really hate that, but unfortunately it's the way it is, and this is Legends, which means it's not canon, and I guess it didn't happen in the same universe as the movies. But anyway, to today's video we're going to discuss the Light Sith. The Light Sith were a really cool organization that were still the Sith. They were the Sith, except they kind of taught and went under the teaching of the light side of the Force. And today we're going to use Wikipedia to kind of reference us and use a lot of information on this, because Wikipedia has pretty much everything about Star Wars on it, and I use it a lot in my videos for things like information, notes, images sometimes, and it's just a great website for these things. So I'm going to be quoting a lot and paraphrasing a lot entirely from Wikipedia, so thanks Wikipedia for all this information. Alright, so first of all, there were some adherents of the Sith teachings that for whatever reason rejected the dark side of the Force in favour of the light. Nonetheless, these Sith retained their devotion to the Sith as an organisation and were called Light Sith or light-sided Sith. Alright, so this next bit is about Darth Gravid or Gravid. I really can't pronounce some words, I'm really sorry, but Darth Gravid or Gravid is this next part. It says this: Darth Gravid or Gravid came to the conclusion that pure devotion to the dark side would curse the Sith of his era to the same fate as their predecessors, and sought a new philosophy in which the Sith would follow the light side of the Force, strengthening themselves with compassion and love, as their Jedi counterparts did. Sealed away in his Jaguada bastion, Gravid set about amassing centuries worth of Sith lore that had been passed down from master to apprentice since the time of Darth Bane, including holocrons, crystals, scrolls, tomes, amulets, and all other manner of artifacts, and proceeded to burn them, seeking to ensure that future generations of aspiring Sith remained committed to the path he had laid before them. Unfortunately, Gravid's apprentice, Darth Geen, did not share her master's vision. Horrified by the destruction of the Sith's treasures, she threw herself at her master, attacking Gravid with her bare hands, and after a violent struggle, succeeded in killing him, bringing an abrupt end to his plans. Although many valuable artifacts and teachings were consigned to the flames, including the technique of essence transfer, Geen did manage to preserve enough material with which to instruct her own apprentice, ensuring the continuation of Darth Bane's original intentions, unfaltering allegiance to the dark side. In the Darth Plagueis novel, Darth Plagueis even mentions this himself. It says here that Darth Plagueis later recounted the events of Darth Gravid's demise in regards to seeking out the lost method of immortality. Likewise, Plagueis would do something similar in Spirit to Gravid. He attempted to end the rule of two, only to end up being murdered by his apprentice, Darth Sidious, as a consequence, who felt that ending it was against the nature of the dark side. Alright, so on the page about the Light Sith, it says like notable members, so in other words, people who followed this kind of code, and it leads me to Kelef Yor. I think that's how you pronounce his name, Kelef Yor. I'm really sorry, I butchered names in Star Wars, I'm really sorry, but it's really interesting. It says here on his page, it's a quote that says, "It's a lie, fear is a lie, passion a lie. Fears gives only temporary powers, and passion is easily manipulated. Real strength in the Force comes when no one is no longer afraid." So that was one example of someone who kind of followed the Light Sith code, and I think it's really cool. In regards to this whole kind of Light Sith organization, I think it's amazing, and I think this should be made canon, because in Star Wars, it very much so feels like, in the movies at least, that it's either one or the other. Even the Jedi have really questionable kind of quotes and methods in the prequels. Things like, you should not form any kind of friendship or bondship or love with someone else. When they repeatedly, contradict themselves in the films, it makes no sense whatsoever. And, it's the Jedi or the Sith, dark or the light. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I think, there are great Jedi. There has been great Jedi in Star Wars. For example, Qui-Gon Jinn was kind of a great Jedi. He didn't really follow the kind of Jedi code to the extent that he should have done. But I just, you know, it's like one or the other, and I think there should be an alternative. There should be people like the Light Sith. There should be more Grey Jedi. There should be, you know, more options. There should be Sith who don't really want to be the most evil people in the entire galaxy, because the Sith in the movies are presented to be like really evil beings, and some of them aren't. Some of them, you know, some of them have emotions and feelings. And I think these things should be explored a lot more. At least I can say that in the new movies, Kylo Ren seems to be kind of like in between. He's a dark like, kind of Jedi. He's not a Sith. He's a dark Jedi, but he struggles with like you know, being pulled to the light. That's really interesting right there. But I feel that it would be nice to make this canon, or at least kind of address something that isn't, you know, so black and white as the Sith and the Jedi. You know, I want to explore this a lot more, because obviously it's not realistic to have just two kind of things. You pick one, you pick the other, and you know, one is very basic, the other is very basic, and you follow this code. No, you know, the Light Sith, you know, the EU really kind of expands on these things and makes sense of it. And this is a good example right here, the Light Sith. It's Sith who didn't necessarily follow the kind of bluntness of the Sith and was open to every kind of aspect of the light side. Cal Katarn is another one. Cal Katarn used both dark side and light side, you know, against his enemies. Doesn't mean he was a bad person or, you know, he was evil. He just used it to his advantage. But anyway, guys, that was the Light Sith, an extremely interesting part of the expanded universe. Unfortunately, it's not canon, but who cares? I got all this information from Wikipedia. I use Wikipedia a lot for my videos, and whether it's a theory video or whatever, they're really informative and great. They have everything on there. Go and check them out in the description down below. Let me know your thoughts on the Light Sith in the comment section down below. Do you want to see the Light Sith being canon, or do you want to see the Light Sith come back in, you know, a future movie? Let me know. Drop a like if you enjoyed, that really helps me out, and subscribe to me for more regular Star Wars videos. Thanks for watching, guys.